Enshrouded came out swinging strong and hitting hard. However, has Enshrouded kept its steam going this past year, or has it slowed down and become another dead early access game?
The team at Keen Games has not slowed down at all this year, working on Enshrouded. We've gotten four major updates, along with patches and hot fixes as well. But four major updates, all four except for one has been bigger than the last. There was one update that kind of revisited the basics. It was a little bit smaller, but all the rest have added everything from biomes to new enemies to new locations to explore to new quests, new NPCs, and just about anything you can imagine has been added.
We first heard about it, I believe we actually stumbled upon it on the Steam store. And I have to say, myself, I got super excited, mainly because I'm a sucker for voxel games. I love the idea of being able to dig anywhere, burrow through anything, or tunnel through anything, but I also love the idea to be able to build with it. I remember EverQuest promised something very similar to Enshrouded, and seeing what Enshrouded was promising got me super duper excited. And when we finally got access to the demo and finally was able to play the early access version of it, Shrouded did not disappoint. The combat was pretty dang good. The terraforming and the voxel manipulation actually was on point. I think building our first place took a little bit of work to get used to the building system. But overall, the game had leveling, it had combat, it had exploration, it even had its own lore inside of it. You were able to find little scraps here and there. The game came out and it was good. We could play together without a lot of, setting up a server or anything else. We could just jump in, have fun. The world wasn't extremely difficult. I think the only disappointment I had was it was so diet survival. It didn't feel survival. And while I think it has some more survival elements now, it's still pretty diet survival.
In the early access and demo of Enshrouded has been one of the better early access and demos that we've played in a while, and that encases all of the things that you talked about because it had some lore to it already. It had a lot to explore already. It had plenty to build, and the voxel building system got our minds working right away on where we could build, what we could build, and how we could build. Yeah, it did take us a few minutes to kind of figure out the building system, and it's not because it's difficult, but it's because switch at least for me it's because switching from say something like Minecraft building to like voxel building, and how much customization you have in Enshrouded to where you can build down to the tiniest little square block, whether you're cutting out windows or whether you're wanting to build half walls, whatever you want to do. There's so much option there that you kind of had to I kind of had to adjust my brain to that in order to actually build some of the first bases.
Well, not to mention too, some of the voxel system had some hilarious moments, such as, hearing you go, look out as Jarl swings his sword into an explosive barrel and blows up half of a building that we were trying to raid and makes it a little bit more difficult to loot it. But the overall approach to Enshrouded was pretty good. And like you said, the journey has been amazing. Folks, he said they had four major updates, but they also had five patches and 18 hot fixes. And for a smaller indie game dev team, this is pretty big for them to be able to do all of this work because, like Dimension said earlier, only one of the patches was a little bit smaller than the others, but all of them were pretty large content patches. And this is what we like to see from developers constantly innovating and trying to push the limits of their development. And it's really cool to see Enshrouded. One of the coolest things is they gave us a roadmap, folks. And most times when developers gives us roadmaps, they don't complete a lot of it because again, they're indie developer. It takes some time to do things. But Keen Games did not disappoint. I'm going to go through the list real quick, folks, but here you go. This is what we got from the list that they promised in the roadmap. Hollow Halls Dungeon, location improvements, multiple NPC instances, more trees to grow, replayable world quests, townsfolk NPCs, townfolk pets, mountain biomes, multiplayer pings, performance improvements, workshop craft from magic chests, sitting on furniture, potted plants, server gameplay settings, nameable bases, new enemies and bosses, fixes and polishing, weather system, magical instruments, server user rights, new building materials, improvised post-processing, better stack splitting, smoother high FPS, named tombstones, high animal farming, vanity system, better quest sorting, round doors and windows, reassignable glider shortcut, improved loot UI, and Steam Deck support. And I mentioned they only missed like a couple of them, didn't they?
Yeah, there's only I think maybe like four on that roadmap that haven't been hit. And it's, I wouldn't say insignificant items, but it's smaller items that aren't really going to like super affect the game. Things like nameable map locations. There's a plan to put it, well, you can already mark custom spots on the map, but there's a plan to put into effect where you can name those custom locations. Things like that, things like editable signs. So things that we want to see and the community is looking forward to, but nothing that's like crazy game breaking if it's not made in this year.
What do you think about these updates? Why were they impressive? Because you're the one who's been doing the updates for our channel. You tell us.
For me, it's like you said, Keen Games is a smaller indie studio, and it's how much they've packed in to each of the updates. Back to the Shroud is the only update that wasn't as big as the other three. I think that was the third update. It hasn't matched the others, but that one was more of like a change to the building blocks of Enshrouded. They went back and revisited some of the basics. Yes, they did add some new stuff and add some new locations and things like that, but it was more of a let's revisit the basics and let's adjust some of the things that need to be adjusted because of all the areas that we're adding that make the game more playable long term, but also more beginner friendly and more challenging at the end. But we've had hollow halls, which added a not a new biome, but a brand new set of areas to explore in these hollow halls. These like abandoned, ruined castles full of undead. We had Back to the Mire, which added a brand new biome with giant trees, which is beautiful to explore. Some terrible mud that you can sink in and die, new creatures, all kinds of stuff. And then the latest update that added a new mountainous region, which we haven't seen yet, and a bunch of new things that you can gather and build with, new enemies. There's so much packed into all, at least all three of the major updates that just expand the game more. And then the other update, the Back to the Shroud, is just rebuilding some of the basic building blocks, like I said, to make these bigger updates more accessible and more player friendly.
Yeah, I think one of my most favorite parts about all of these updates myself is that they were very well balanced. Every update not only gave us most updates gave us new regions, but they also gave us new building blocks, new weapons, new armor, new ways to forge, new minerals to either discover, find, or loot from dead corpses. There was a balance between across the board on all categories in the game, and while sometimes they leaned a little bit heavy on one of those categories, every category seemed to be touched. And that included bug fixes and quality of life improvements. Like every single one of these had huge amounts of bug fixes and improvements. I remember one of the earliest bugs, which they hot fixed real quick, was you could literally use dirt to build a path into the sky and all the way across the entire land, which was pretty hilarious. But honestly, they've been doing such a good job, and I think you even told me before we started recording that they won some game awards?
Yeah, there was just recently over in Germany there was some game awards they won. Everything from best game design, best German game, best technical achievements, and studio of the year. Actually,
Wow, that is absolutely amazing. Like, honestly, like I'm just impressed that they're able to do so much, and I'm really happy they won these awards. The Keen Games definitely deserve them, and I think Enshrouded is just going to keep getting better. I know there might be some issues. There are always cons to every game, but I hope keep people keep reporting it, and Keen Games keeps producing these quality content updates. I have to say, I think Enshrouded, coming back from almost a year later, I think Enshrouded is a very great game. It's a lot of fun. There's so much to do in it. I think this is a game you could sit around with your friends and play for hours and hours and pick it up and then play for hours and hours again.
they listen to their community a lot. A lot of these updates and a lot of the things that you mentioned on that roadmap came from the community and have been, if not completely influenced by the community, have been changed by the community. And Keen Games takes note of what their community wants and what the community says and fixes things, adjusts things, but also adds things into the game based on their community's feedback.
Well, folks, that has been our look back at Enshrouded over the past year and our thoughts on it. Folks, if you have enjoyed this episode, don't forget to like and subscribe. As well as, folks, make sure you go check out Enshrouded. It's often on sale and it is a wonderful and beautiful game. We'll put the link down in the description below. Thank you very much for watching the State of Survival podcast. Join me in thanking Damage of 119 and Red Falcon for being part of the team and always being by. Thank you for watching us. Ta-ta for now.
See you in another dimension.